I don't scare easily. I've been a nurse for 12 years, mostly working night shifts. I've seen people at their worst dying, screaming, hallucinating. I've cleaned up more blood and bile than most people will see in a lifetime. Hospitals are strange places at night. Shadows play tricks on tired eyes, call lights flicker on in empty rooms, and sometimes, if you're not paying attention, you hear voices where there shouldn't be any. But what happened during my last shift at St. Mary's was different. It was a Sunday, always the quietest night. We were short-staffed as usual, which meant I was covering more rooms than I should have been. The other nurses and I took turns making rounds, checking on patients, updating charts, handing out meds. It was routine, boring even, until room 604. The patient had been admitted that afternoon. No name, no ID, no family, just John Doe on the chart. He'd been found unconscious in an alley downtown, covered in deep scratches, his clothes torn. No drugs in his system, no head trauma, just those wounds, crisscrossing his arms and torso like he'd crawled through barbed wire. By the time my shift started, he was stable but unresponsive. His vitals were normal, but he wouldn't wake up. His eyes moved beneath his lids like he was dreaming, but when we tried to rouse him, nothing. At around 1:15 a.m., his call light came on. I frowned. The man hadn't moved since he'd been admitted. I had just checked on him not 20 minutes ago. He was still unconscious. I grabbed my tablet and made my way to room 604. The hallway was quiet, the dim fluorescent lighting buzzing softly. When I reached his door, I hesitated. Something felt off. I knocked lightly before stepping inside. The room was dark except for the monitor's soft glow. The air felt colder than the rest of the floor. The patient lay motionless in bed, just as before, but the call button was on the floor. It had been clipped to his bedrail when I last checked. There was no way it could have fallen on its own. I picked it up, my pulse quickening. His breathing was steady. His wounds hadn't reopened. Nothing had changed. But I still felt it, that prickling awareness at the back of my skull, like I was being watched. I placed the call button back on his bed and stepped out, shaking it off. Just exhaustion, just another weird hospital moment. At 2:47 a.m., his heart monitor started beeping. I rushed to the room, expecting the worst, but when I arrived, his vitals were fine. Heart rate normal, oxygen levels perfect, no distress, but the beeping continued. I checked the machine. The rhythm on the screen made no sense. It wasn't erratic, wasn't random, it was deliberate. A pattern. Short, short, long, short, long, long, short. Morse code. The realization sent a chill through me. I turned to look at the patient. He was still unconscious, his face slack, but his lips were moving. No sound, just slight, twitching movement, like he was whispering to something in his sleep. The monitor beeped again. Short, long, long. I stumbled back, my breath coming faster. I had no idea what the message meant, but I knew it was meant for me. I left the room. I went straight to the nurse's station and pulled up his file. Maybe there was something we missed. Something explaining why an unconscious man's heart monitor was spelling out messages. But there was nothing. No family, no next of kin, no medical history. And then I saw it. Under time of admission, 3:12 am. That wasn't right. He had been brought in earlier that afternoon. I was sure of it. I had seen the paramedics myself. I checked the timestamp again. 3:12 a.m. Today. An hour from now, my skin went cold. I checked the security footage. The camera outside room 604 showed me entering, standing beside his bed, leaving. Nothing strange. But when I scrubbed backward, checking earlier in the night, something didn't make sense. The first time I checked on him at 12:55, and the bed was empty. He wasn't there. But I remembered seeing him, checking his chart, adjusting his IV. I leaned closer to the screen, my heart pounding. At 1:15 a.m., the moment his call light had come on, the room remained empty. But the call button moved. It unclipped from the railing, floated for half a second, then dropped to the floor. I stared, my body frozen. Then, at 2:47 a.m., the moment his heart monitor had started beeping, the camera glitched. Not static, not a black screen, just skipped time. 1 second, the room was empty. The next, he was in the bed, unmoving, asleep, exactly as I had found him. I turned off the monitor and grabbed my things. I didn't care about finishing my shift. I didn't care about protocol. I needed to leave. As I rushed toward the exit, my phone vibrated. A text. Unknown number. Don't go yet. I looked up. Room 604's door was open. The patient was standing in the doorway, watching me. He shouldn't have been able to stand. His wounds were too deep. He had been completely unresponsive, but there he was, and he was smiling. I bolted for the stairs. I don't remember the drive home. I don't remember anything after running out of the hospital, but when I woke up this afternoon, I checked the news. There was a fire at St. Mary's. The 6th floor was completely destroyed. No survivors, no records of anyone being in room 604. I checked my phone again. One new message. See you soon. I never expected my last day at Grayson Technologies to be anything more than a dull countdown to 5 o'clock. I had worked there for 6 years, and though I never loved it, it was stable. Boring, sure, but reliable. The company was downsizing, and I was one of the unlucky ones. A severance package, a polite handshake, and then out the door. I wasn't particularly close to anyone in the office. There were casual work friendships, lunch break conversations about weekend plans, and the occasional happy hour, but no one I'd keep in touch with after leaving. That made it easier, I suppose. At 4:45, my inbox was empty, my desk was cleared, and my access badge was sitting on the desk. I had sent my farewell emails, suffered through a lukewarm cake in the break room, and taken my final lap around the floor. My manager, Bill, had already left for a meeting, which I knew was code for avoiding awkward goodbyes. Fine by me. With nothing left to do, I grabbed my coat and headed to the elevator. That's when I noticed something strange. The office was empty. Not just most people left early empty, completely empty. The usual low hum of distant conversations, the clatter of keyboards, the occasional ringing phone, it was all gone. The overhead lights buzzed softly, but otherwise silent. I checked the time on my phone. 4:53 p.m. It wasn't late. People should still be here. The cleaning crew wouldn't arrive for another couple of hours. I took a step toward the hallway leading to reception, expecting to see Tanya, the receptionist, still at her desk. But as I rounded the corner, her station was deserted. Her coffee cup sat half full beside her keyboard, a spoon still resting inside it. A jacket draped over the back of her chair. She had been here recently. A sudden, sharp beep echoed through the space. My computer? No, I had logged out and shut it down. Another beep, then another. The sound was coming from somewhere near the back of the office. I hesitated. My first instinct was to leave. This wasn't my problem anymore. But something about the empty office and the abandoned coffee cup sent a ripple of unease through my stomach. I turned back, walking carefully toward the source of the noise. It was coming from the IT room. The door was slightly ajar, and a flickering glow spilled out into the hallway. I pushed it open. The monitors inside were alive with flashing red error messages. Unauthorized access detected. Please contact system administrator. Lines of code scrolled too fast to read, but that wasn't what made my breath hitch. A chair was pulled out slightly from one of the desks. A pair of glasses rested beside a notepad. Someone had been sitting there moments ago, but they weren't anymore. And then I saw the security feed. One of the screens displayed a live feed from the office cameras. I recognized the view. It was from the ceiling corner, showing the main workspace, my desk, and the hallway leading to reception. I was in the frame, standing at the IT room door, but I wasn't alone. A figure stood at my desk. Not moving, not typing, just standing. I spun around, expecting to see them in the flesh, but the space was empty. The entire office remained still. My eyes snapped back to the monitor. The figure was still there, unmoving, watching. They were facing the camera, but their face was wrong. Not blurred, not pixelated, just wrong. The proportions seemed off, as if someone had drawn a human face from memory, but missed the little details that made it real. The mouth was too wide. The eyes were too far apart. The timestamp read 4:58 p.m. I took a step backward. The figure on the screen tilted its head. I didn't move, but my heartbeat thundered in my ears. Slowly, the figure lifted a hand. My breath caught. The hand rose higher, and then it waved. At me. The office lights shut off. The emergency lights flickered to life, casting long, stretching shadows through the cubicles. My breath was ragged. My legs unsteady, but I forced myself to move, turning sharply toward the hallway. I had to get out. Now, I sprinted past the empty desks, past Tanya's abandoned coffee cup, past the conference room, with its glass walls reflecting the dim emergency glow. My shoes pounded against the carpet as I approached the elevator. I stabbed the call button. Nothing. Nothing. I hit it again. Still nothing. I turned toward the stairwell. As I reached for the door handle, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text message. I hesitated. Then I pulled it out. Unknown number. You forgot to say goodbye. The office door behind me creaked open. I ran. I don't remember how many flights of stairs I took, but I didn't stop until I burst out into the parking garage. The space was nearly empty, only a few scattered cars remaining. My car was near the back, shrouded in shadow. I ran for it, fumbling with my keys. Another text. I didn't look. I didn't want to know. I reached my car and yanked the door open, slamming it behind me and locking it. My hands were shaking as I shoved the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. I exhaled, gripping the wheel, my body trembling. My phone buzzed again. Against my better judgment, I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. See you tomorrow. I never went back to that office. I don't know what I saw. I don't know if anyone else saw it. I tried calling Tanya the next day. Her number was disconnected. The company was fully remote within a month. The building was closed 6 months later. But sometimes, late at night, when my apartment is silent, my phone buzzes with another message from that same unknown number. And no matter how many times I change phones, I still get the same message. You forgot to say goodbye. I never should have taken that night shift. The money was decent, and the job was simple cleaning offices after hours in a nearly abandoned corporate building. But the 13th floor, that floor wasn't normal. I started the job about a month ago. It was just me and an old janitor named Ron. He had been working there for 20 years. Every night, we'd come in at 11 p.m., clean until 4 a.m., and leave before the morning shift started. The first time I met Ron, he gave me one piece of advice. Don't clean the 13th floor. I laughed. Why? He looked at me, dead serious. Because it ain't supposed to be there. That shut me up. I figured he was messing with me, some old man's idea of a joke. But as the weeks passed, I noticed something strange. The elevator panel in the lobby skipped 13 entirely. It went from 12 straight to 14. But when I checked the cleaning schedule, there was a line for 14th floor maintenance. I asked Ron about it again. He just shook his head. You leave it alone, son. Some things don't need cleaning. It was a slow night. I had finished the first 12 floors in record time. Out of curiosity, I decided to check the stairwell. The sign above the door read, "Warning, emergency exit only." But there was something else. Someone had scratched words into the metal, almost too faint to read. Don't open. Don't let them out. A chill ran through me. I told myself it was just graffiti, some bored employee messing around. But my curiosity got the better of me. I pushed the door open. The stairwell was pitch black. The only light came from the dim red glow of the emergency exit sign. I climbed the stairs slowly, my breath loud in the silence. When I reached the landing, my stomach dropped. There was a door. The placard next to it said, 13. It shouldn't exist. The elevator panel skipped this floor, and yet here it was. I hesitated, then turned the handle. The hallway was wrong. The ceiling was lower than on the other floors. The walls were yellowed, peeling. The lights flickered, humming softly. I stepped inside. The air was stale, damp, like an old basement. Doors lined the hallway, each identical, unmarked. Something felt off. I checked my phone. No service. Then I noticed something else. The floor beneath my feet was damp. Not just damp-soaked, like it had been rained on, but the ceiling was dry. A distant drip echoed from somewhere down the hall. I should have left. I should have turned around and gone back to work. But I didn't. Instead, I walked forward. The doors had no labels, no numbers, just blank white slabs. I picked one at random and pushed it open. Inside was a small, windowless office. A single desk, a phone, a chair, and a man. He sat behind the desk, perfectly still, wearing an old suit, his skin pale and waxy. His hands rested on the desk, fingers slightly curled. For a second, I thought he was dead. Then his head snapped up. I stumbled back. His eyes locked onto mine, black, empty, endless. The phone on the desk rang. A shrill, piercing sound. The man didn't move. The phone rang again, and then he smiled. His lips stretched too wide, revealing teeth that were too white, too straight, too many. I slammed the door shut. I ran. I didn't care about being quiet anymore. I sprinted back toward the stairwell, but the hallway had changed. It was longer. The walls were closer together. Doors I hadn't opened before were now wide open, and from inside them, I heard whispers. Soft, urgent. They knew I was there. I pressed forward, my breath coming in sharp gasps. I glanced to the side. One of the open doors had a mirror inside. I saw my reflection, except it wasn't moving. It just stood there, staring. Then, it took a step toward me. I ran faster than I ever have in my life. The air grew thicker. The lights flickered wildly. The whispers turned to laughter, high, shrill, unnatural. I burst through the stairwell door, nearly falling down the steps. I slammed it shut behind me, my heart pounding. The scratched words on the metal were gone, but something new had been written in their place. "We see you now." I raced down the stairs, skipping entire steps, not stopping until I reached the lobby. Ron was waiting. He took one look at me inside. "You went up there, didn't you?" I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Ron shook his head. "You need to leave." He pulled a keycard from his pocket, one I'd never seen before. He walked to the maintenance panel, swiped the card, and the 13th floor button lit up. The elevator doors slid open, revealing nothing but blackness. A gust of cold air rushed out. Ron turned to me, his face grim. "Some floors don't belong." Then he stepped inside. The doors shut, and he was gone. The next day, Ron's name was wiped from the employee records. No one remembered him. His locker was empty. It was like he had never existed. I quit that morning, but sometimes late at night, I still hear it, the ringing phone. And I wonder what would have happened if I had answered. I always hated working the night shift, but I needed the money. The job itself wasn't bad, security guard for a corporate office building. Boring as hell, but easy. Just me, a few dozen empty floors, and the occasional raccoon setting off the motion sensors in the parking lot. But the last night I'd ever worked, there was different. I should start by saying that I'm not the kind of person who gets scared easily. I've done this job for years, working graveyard shifts in everything from banks to abandoned shopping malls. You get used to the stillness, the strange noises that old buildings make, the way your own reflection in a dark window can catch you off guard. But what happened last night, what I saw, was something else entirely. It started the same way it always did. I arrived at 10:45 p.m., signed in at the front desk, and made my first round of the building. The place was a standard corporate headquarters, 10 floors, mostly open office spaces, a few executive suites, conference rooms, and a break area on each floor. At night, it was dead silent, the kind of silence that makes your own breathing sound too loud. By midnight, I was back in the security office on the first floor, sipping bad coffee and watching the surveillance monitors. Everything was normal. The hallways were empty. The motion sensors in the stairwells and elevators were quiet. Just another slow night. Then, at 12:37 a.m., the elevator dinged. I frowned and glanced at the monitor. The feed for the main elevator showed the doors sliding open on the 7th floor, but no one got out. No one had called it. I switched to the hallway camera. The lights were on, casting that cold fluorescent glow over the rows of empty desks. Nothing moved. Still, I knew better than to ignore it. Elevators don't just move on their own. With a sigh, I grabbed my flashlight and radioed in, checking out an elevator malfunction on 7. No response. Not unusual. The guy in the monitoring office downtown probably had his feet up, half asleep. I took the stairs up. When I reached the 7th floor, everything looked normal. The elevator doors were just closing as I stepped into the hallway. I called out, "Anyone here?" Silence. I walked through the rows of desks, my footsteps muffled by the carpet. The office was the same as always, computer monitors in sleep mode, chairs pushed in neatly, a few personal items scattered on desks. The only thing out of place was a single coffee cup near the far window. It wasn't there earlier. I walked over and picked it up. It was still warm. A prickle crawled up my spine. I turned slowly, scanning the room. I was alone. At least I was supposed to be. I exhaled and shook my head. Probably just someone from the evening shift who forgot their drink. That was all. I returned to the elevator and hit the button for the first floor. As the doors slid shut, I glanced at the small security camera in the corner and froze. In the grainy reflection on the back wall, I saw movement. Not my own. Something was standing in the office behind me. The door shut before I could turn around. My heart slammed against my ribs. I jammed the open button, but the elevator was already descending. I fumbled for my radio. Possible trespasser on 7. Requesting backup. Silence. I tried again. Nothing. When the doors opened on the first floor, I stepped out quickly, scanning the empty lobby. I ran back to the security office and checked the monitors. The feed for the 7th floor was black. I cycled through the other cameras. Everything else was working, every hallway, every stairwell. But the 7th floor was just dawn. The building was too quiet. I should have left right then. Instead, I grabbed the only thing I had, a metal flashlight, and took the stairs 2 at a time. When I reached the 7th floor, the hallway lights flickered. The elevator stood open, waiting, as if inviting me back inside. I gripped my flashlight tighter and stepped forward. The office was different now. The desks weren't neat anymore. Papers littered the floor. Some of the chairs had been knocked over. The air smelled faintly of something sour, like old breath or sweat. And then I saw the glass. The conference room at the far end had a long glass wall, and in the reflection, I saw someone standing among the desks. Not a person, a shape, tall, wrong. Too many joints in the arms, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, as if it was studying me. But there was nothing there, just the reflection. I took a step back, my breath quick and shallow. The thing in the glass took a step forward. I spun around, but the office was empty. Then the lights cut out. I bolted for the stairs. Behind me, something moved. Not footsteps, not breathing, something shifting. I hit the stairwell door so hard it rattled in its frame. I didn't stop until I was back in the security office, locking the door behind me. My hands were shaking as I checked the monitors. The 7th floor feed was back, and I saw myself, standing in the hallway, staring at the camera. But I was here, in the security office. The figure in the monitor lifted a hand and waved. I slammed the power button, plunging the room into darkness. My phone buzzed. I fumbled it out of my pocket, my fingers numb. A message from an unknown number. Almost time to clock out. I ran. I don't remember grabbing my things. I don't remember the drive home. But when I got to my apartment, I locked every door and window, shoved a chair under the handle, and sat awake until morning. When my boss called, I let it go to voicemail. I didn't care if I got fired. At noon, I finally worked up the courage to check my phone. One new message. You left early. I quit that night, never went back. But sometimes, when I pass by that building on my way home, I see a figure standing in one of the 7th floor windows, watching, waiting, and every night, right at 12:37 a.m., I get a text. Almost time to clock out.